So anyway, we just got back to work. In the time after Jared had lost his job, that was an interesting time because he seemed a lot more needy. He was definitely more like revealing during that time. He wanted to spend more time, like, since he wasn't doing much, he would, call me, and whatever I was doing, he would just come join me with it. Even if I was like going to the movies, going to the Dollar Theater that day to see a movie at the Dollar Theater. Y'all remember the Dollar Theater? I missed the Dollar Theater. And so we actually got closer during this time. I was trying to be a support for him because I had never been through what he was going through, and so I was just trying to, I think, just be as good of a friend as I understood myself to be able to be to somebody, and talk with him when he felt like talking, and spending time with him when he expressed that he wanted to spend time, and we learned a lot more about each other during that time, for like the next year and a half, and all the while we're still trying to move this project forward. We're still filming and everything.
What is wrong with you?
What's my problem? Why don't you ask that fool what my problem is? And not only that, what the hell is he doing in my house?
Darius!
No, what you gonna say? You gonna stick up for him again?
Darius, listen.
No.
Dude, just hear her out.
No, I don't want to hear shit.
Darius!
You know what? Just shut the fuck up.
Don't fucking curse at me. You know what this whole thing is getting on my nerves? I tried to be understanding because your father just died. I tried to listen and be there, but you know what? It's not even about that anymore. This is about you and your selfishness.
So, I started seeing some interesting things from him, I would say, in like late 2006, and then in 2007, the more we were like just spending so much time together, like we were always meeting, trying to strategize and debrief and review and plan and plot. There were these filmmakers that were, I don't know if they're from Tallahassee, but they definitely like came out of FAMU, and Jared's an alpha, and fraternity meaning, and these guys, we call them the Rainforest guys, but they were Rob Hardy and Will Packer, which they're famous now, and they had some success with some independent black films, and they were frat brothers of Jared, and so they were like one of the first people that were a little ahead of us that Jared strategically was like, yo, I can probably get us in touch with them, maybe they can do something for us, blah blah blah. And so we kind of spent some time via Jared chasing them. I never felt like they were a fit for the type of products that I wanted to make. I was starting to like shape myself and find my identity as an art house filmmaker. And not to say that their work, these guys' work, wasn't art house. I think they can be considered art house for sure. But I think I just started to see that my what's the word? Just my palette was very different than Jared's. I had a more worldly palette creatively and artistically. I had been exposed to so much. I mean, I was an honors and AP student in school, and in college I was being exposed to global literature, and I had studied, not just black films, but I'd studied films of all types, in global cinema, So my references were way different from Jared's, and I felt like Jared was just working within the HBCU black like dichotomy, and worldview. And I felt like mine was much broader. So that was like an area of conflict, but not contentious. It was just like one of those like quiet differences I was starting to notice between me and him, and the people that he wanted to try to like have us spend time like chasing down, whereas I had like a different strategy, right? And I was the one really to set the direction of what we were doing business wise, with some pushback at times from him, but he had to remember that ultimately this is my project that we're trying to sell, so we got to kind of consider what I want to do with it. But for the most part, we tried to be on the same page with that stuff, and I was always at least open to entertain whatever he wanted, until it just got to a point where he was just completely off base, and I was like, yo, that's not where we're trying to go, But for the most part, especially in those early years, I was at least down to entertain it, and we did get to those guys, and I think I met those guys on 2 different occasions through him, and met lots of people through him because he knew so many people. He had so many friends and contacts from FAMU, and he liked to network. He was a salesman by career. At that time he had been a pharmaceutical salesman, but he had gotten fired, and he was a salesman for sure, personality wise. And I thought that was a really effective trait of his, until I started to realize you were doing the salesman thing with me too, but I wasn't totally there yet, but it was starting to creep in my observation of him and in our experiences. So anyway, so we were doing that, and wherever we could, get a meeting with a connect of his or mine, we would, and we would try to, entertain it and try to get something going. And while doing that, we are, we're learning more about each other as people, learning more about each other's personal lives. And he told me a lot about his family background, his parents' marriage, his sister, his brother. His brother was actually incarcerated at the time in those years, and I even got a chance to meet, like his mom and his sister when they came into Tallahassee one time, and came to a rehearsal of ours, and I met them. But I was starting to notice that Jared was starting to show some signs of like lack of consistency, both on the business side and then also on the personal side. For example, one time after rehearsal, we had rehearsals, went late one night, and then when we wrapped, and we were all together at this warehouse, we had rehearsals in a building in Tallahassee, and we would like rent time there, or I would rent time there, and this particular night, I wrapped rehearsals, sent everybody home. I had to take one of the actresses home, drive her home, which I did stuff like that. At that time, I was, yeah. I was definitely overextending myself. But I was doing everything I could to, the people that kind of wanted to be a part of what we were doing and what we were building. If people showed me that they were going to basically do their part, then I was willing to, go the extra mile for them, So anyway, this particular night, I, leave rehearsals, drive to take her home, and not even maybe 5 minutes out, I blacked out. While I must have fell asleep while I was driving and kind of hit a curb, and it snatched the oil pan from under my car, right? And it actually happened like 2 minutes away from Jared's house. And that particular night was the night that his mom was in town, right? We had met his mom. And I remember calling him that night because I was so close to his house, and I just left him not even 10 minutes ago. And I was like, I'm near your house. I had a little accident. I need you to come help. And he refused to pick up the phone that night. And I think he might have texted me, or possibly not even have texted me at all until the next day. But he was like at dinner with his mom. But he didn't answer any of my calls or my text. And that was the first time that I was like this was an emergency kind of moment, and you couldn't come and like support me like out of it, So that was an indicator like, okay, I don't know if he's gonna be a good friend, So anyway, anytime stuff like that happened, I was always like confronting him and talking to him. I'm one of those people that, if there's a problem, let's work it out. Let's talk about it. Let's work it out. I've always been like that. I think that's the best way to be. Be a communicator, be somebody that's about like fixing things, not just putting a band-aid on things, and like really working things through so that you're always trying to get to higher ground. I have not met many people in my life that operate from that mode. So it's caused a lot of problems with me being that way, because usually there's a problem, I want to figure it out, but the other person doesn't want to, And so anyway, that was a indicator. But anyway, we just kind of kept going, and then we had, for our season 2 of the show MBK, I had came up with a campaign, a sexual health campaign idea to go along with the show, which talked about because we in our show we went there, we talked about drug issues, we talked about sex, we talked about infidelity, we talked about I think I said drugs, we talked about relationships, family relationships, social issues, socio-political issues. And I remember I came up with this sexual health campaign to go alongside our show. And our strategy with that was we would get the support of sexual health organizations to help us promote the show and get more, visibility for our show. And we did do that, and we did, form relationships with a couple organizations, and did a couple things to help increase the visibility of our show. I remember in the middle of us kind of, enacting that effort, I remember him telling me that at the time, that time in his life, that he was like celibate, right? And I was like, oh, that's cool, and I put that in the category of, okay, this is a good guy. He's got his head on his shoulders. I mean, I used to tell people he was such a good guy, and yeah, and I thought that was cool, that he shared that with me and that he was living like that, Then we get to, I think that takes us to like 2008, the top of 2008. And he had some stuff to do. He would still go out of town for different things. He was really trying to like get some like actor model opportunities going, right? And so he would find a way to go out of town for stuff like that. And so there became a moment where we had been working on MBK at this point for like 2 years and some change, and I also was able to do a few other things, and I wanted to say something before that I left out when I talked about me investing in the projects myself. Jared, earlier on after Keisha moved, we had shot the pilot of MBK with a friend of Keisha's, a film school friend of hers, and he had a camera, a Sony Z1U actually, and we shot the pilot on that, right? And I loved the look of it, right? And then when we started shooting like the official first season, but it was after Keisha and that friend moved out of Tallahassee, then we had to figure out what we were going to do camera wise. And we ended up, Jared, he had bought a camera, one that I think we picked out together. He had bought it, it wasn't too expensive, and we tried filming on that camera, but it wasn't, we realized, I didn't know much about cameras at the time, and so we ended up realizing it was the wrong camera. It was nothing close to what we were previously filming on. And so then we were like trying to figure out like, how do we get the same camera that we started on, that the guy had that shot our show, which his name was Demetrius, ran, and he's still a friend of mine, very talented guy. So we figured out what the camera was and what the specs needed to be, and Jared volunteered to buy that other camera that we thought was the accurate camera. And I was kind of uneasy about that because it was more expensive of a camera, and I think I was willing to wait until I got the money together to get the camera for us, as I generally did for pretty much all of our needs, our production needs. But he felt like he didn't want to stop production. He didn't want to stop filming in order to wait for that. And he felt like, well, let me just get it. I'll put it on my credit card. And I was like, well, if that's what you want to do, and I let him do it, but we didn't formalize any agreement, and we should have, and so, was looking back, if he was supposed to be the business guy with the business degree, I'm surprised he didn't, especially after the contract incident with with the actors, which may have happened before or after this, but I'm not sure. Either way, I wanted to acknowledge that he did that, and it wasn't still the right camera, but that wasn't our fault. It was the right camera, but by then Sony had updated that original model that we first started shooting on versus the second one that we ended up buying, and the other one wasn't available anymore. So, but it was still great quality, and so we were just shooting on that camera, and that became our primary camera the rest of our time in Tallahassee. And so anyway,
it's a project that I think, number one, a lot of people who are part of the series pretty much understand that, it's something that is real. It's a real strong storyline. It's real strong. There's a lot of topics in the series that need to be talked about and aren't voiced. People should watch MBK because, there's something different,
We, so jumping back to, we're at, late 2007, early 2008 now, and we had shot 2 seasons of the show, MBK, and we also had shot some short films that I had written, specifically a short called Soulmate, which we didn't finish, but we got most of it shot, and we shot a short called Where the Streets Have No Name at that time, and I had filmed using Jared's camera a project for James Bland, filmmaker James Bland, called Dreaming in Color, which was his first project, to get his filmmaking career off the ground. So I was helping with him, and my relationship with him will be another video. I'm going to talk about that. Anyway, Jared wasn't happy when he found out I shot the film for James Bland, and he had a point. I should have ran it by him first. The camera was always in my possession generally, and so we found a way to give him credit on that project and everything, and it kept moving forward. So so after all of that filming and all those projects, me and Jared wanted to try to shoot our first feature film that he would star in. And it was from a script that I wrote called Victim, which was a script that I wrote at 19, actually. It's my first feature film script that I've ever written, called Victim. And the title has been since updated to be The Execution of Nigel Harris. But anyway, we started trying to shoot our own feature film. This is late 2007, early 2008. So we start, trying to pull that project together, casting it, trying to pull like a new crew in to help us, new people to help us, new actors that we weren't already working with, like older actors and whatnot. It was a very serious story about a man who was possibly wrongly accused of a sexual crime and in prison, and then it was about his life after, when he gets out of prison, and Jared was playing the main character. So we started working on that and start casting it. Just prior to us starting to cast that project is one particular day where I started to say this story before, but he would go out of town. Jared would go out of town and for different things. And so he had a trip planned out of town, and he had some of my tapes, because back then we were filming on this camera, and so you had these tapes that were called mini DV tapes, and they were about this small. And he had some of mine in possession, and I needed them to edit, right? And we had agreed, hey, don't go out of town before I can come and pick up those tapes, because while you're gone for a couple days or whatever, I want to still be able to edit, while you're gone. And so he was like, cool. And so on the day that he was due to go out of town, I remember waking up and I was like, okay, hey, I'm gonna come over, tell me what time I can come over and pick up those tapes. And I remember I think he had said that I could come over, but he didn't say what time. And then when I was trying to figure out what time can I come and, don't leave without me coming to get them, he wasn't responding anymore, right? And so I was like kind of starting to panic, and I was like, yo, I need to get these tapes from you, right? And so he had a rule. His rule was, don't just pop up at my house. Like, let me know when you're on your way, which is actually one of my rules too, right? When I got older and more independent. So that was cool, but I was trying to reach him and he wasn't responding. And I was thinking that, because there were times, with me and his relationship and our communication, like, he was definitely the kind of person that he was going to respond when he felt like it. Whereas me, even if I didn't feel like responding, or if I didn't feel like working, you know what I mean? I didn't feel like answering an email. I didn't feel like texting back one of my actors who were always hitting me up about something. I did it because I felt like that was my responsibility and my role. And he didn't move like that. He did things when he felt like it, and which is kind of good in a way, because it's you controlling your work-life balance, your life balance, which is a lesson that I didn't learn for some years, right? And so on the one hand, I get it, I understand, but on the other hand, if we have a pre-agreement about how we're going to do something, then I'm expecting that still to go the way we've agreed, and if I need something from you, especially if we've pre-agreed on it, then be sensitive to that, like honor that. And he really wasn't that way. He kind of got around to things when he got around to it. And it was with our communication, that was definitely one of the areas where I saw that the reciprocity wasn't there. And even when like I mentioned before about how we started spending time together after he lost his job, and I was trying to like be there for him, but it really was, like I would check on him, and he would, always tell me that how he wants somebody to like check on him and make sure he's okay and make him feel like he's being considered and supported. But he was very hot and cold with that. There are times where I checked on him where he actually like appreciated the check-in, and then there were times where I would check in and it just felt like, like why are you bugging me? Like why are you bugging me? Like I don't want to talk, I don't want to, And so he was kind of hot and cold with that. And again, he was hot and cold with, he would respond, he would sometimes choose not to respond even in inopportune moments, And I just started to see that as like a lack of respect, a lack of consistency, and a lack of honorability. I didn't think that was honorable. Like, I don't think an honorable person does that. I was starting to see that he was somebody that was selfish, and that he put his needs above even the urgency of business, of what we were doing. You know what I mean? If there was a business concern, like, and there was an urgency, like if he chose not to accept the urgency of it, then it just wouldn't, he just wouldn't be present for that, and that caused ripples at times too. Like we definitely had like little bumps, related to what is our communication, like, agreement, and what is our workflow. Like, if we're making agreements about how we're going to work as partners, then you have to do your part of it, and you have to be fair, and you have to be considerate, and you have to be respectful. And you can't just want that from me and then you're not giving it back. You know what I mean? And when you think something's urgent, you want me to give you what you need. If you need a press kit from me, if you need me to send you something or something you need, I'm always doing that even when it's an inconvenience for me, but you don't let me do that to you, So I was definitely seeing those things during that time for sure. And so anyway, we start working on this film project, so anyway, this particular day, since he wasn't responding, I was like, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and just make my way across town to his house to catch him before he leaves. And so, which I didn't think was a big deal, because any other time I wouldn't just do that, but this time he stopped responding. Like, I think he had told me that morning that he was like in the shower, and then after that he stopped responding. And then I was like, well, I hope he wouldn't be like rude enough to go from tell me he's in the shower and then like get on the road when he knows I'm trying to come over and pick up these tapes from his house. And so anyway, I drive across town, I get to his house, I park in front of his house where I always park because I always spend a lot of time at his house. He had one of those, he had two houses when I met him, and then, but he lived in one, and it was like a, what do you call those? Like a duplex type house. And then he had another property that he like rented out that was like a full like standalone house. Anyway, I pull up to his house. I park in the street, in front of his house like I always did. And I go knock on the door, and I think I saw that his car was still there, right? And so the door opens, and a girl opens the door in a towel. And so I'm a little shocked, because I'm like, who are you? And so she opens the door in a towel. She had short hair. And I was like, oh, I'm here to see Jared. My name's Lamont. And she's like, oh, you're Lamont. In my head, I'm thinking, who the hell are you? How do you know my name? And I'm like, I'm just here to pick up some tapes. I need to get these tapes from him. He said that, I could come get them, but he wasn't responding. And so she's like, oh, he's in the shower. And so she invites me in. So I come in and I sit at the bar in his living room where I would sit a lot of times when I came over to his house. And I think there's like jazz music playing. And I previously had remembered that he had told me that he likes to play jazz music. No, I don't think he told me that. I think he told me that after. I don't know. I remember there being jazz music playing. Or maybe he had just previously told me he liked jazz music. I don't know. And so I'm sitting at the bar. I'm like, okay, he's got company. Okay, I didn't even know that he was seeing anybody. He never mentioned it. I knew that. Yeah, he never mentioned it. He never mentioned that he was seeing anybody the whole time I had known him up to that point. So she goes in his bedroom, and then I'm waiting, and then I'm expecting him to come out and give me these tapes. So she comes back out. She brings me the bag of tapes. It's like a Ziploc bag with my tapes inside. And I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking in my head, like, he ain't even gonna come out and say anything. And I was like, all right, well, it's like, okay, thank you. And I get up and I leave. She's like, it's nice meeting you, blah, blah, blah. Nice meeting you too, whoever you are. And so I get in my car, and remember pulling off just having like a funny feeling in my stomach, right? So I leave and I go on about my business. And he ends up going out of town, and I don't see him until he gets back. So, he gets back, and we're just continuing on with whatever we were doing, which was like filming and all that stuff. And then we're trying to prepare this particular feature film project and everything. So then, and this is like early 2008 when that incident happened at the door. So then we start auditioning for the project, and we're pulling together actors. We hold auditions probably at the Wingate Hotel in Tallahassee. I don't know if it's still there. This is 20 years ago. Like 17 years ago, however. We're at auditions, and people are coming in and out, auditioning one by one. And at a certain point, he tells me, "Oh, I know somebody that wants to come audition. They're gonna stop by." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." So, we're at auditions like a whole day, and this girl comes in the door, and I immediately recognize her, and she's the girl from the door of his house. The girl in the towel. She walks into my auditions to audition for the second lead female role, right? I'm like, what the hell's going on? I was never probably introduced to her the first time I ran into her, and now she's just casually coming in, right? And I'm like, okay, so the girl that he had in his house, his guest, she's an actress. Didn't know that. All right, fine. So she auditions and leaves, right? So then I remember after the audition, me and him wrap the auditions, and then we go get something to eat at Macaroni Grill in Tallahassee, right? And we kind of debrief how the day went and just where we are with pulling this project together. And I remember at one point I asked him, I said, "Okay, so this girl," right? I said, "Okay, I guess, so she's like your girlfriend?" And he says to me, "Unofficially." That's what he said, "unofficially." And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Unofficial. I've never heard that before. I don't even remember his explanation, but she was the unofficial girlfriend. Okay, that's what he's telling me. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And I'm like, okay, so you had her come audition for our project. I mean, are you serious about that? Like, you want me to seriously consider her, And he's like, yeah, He's like, what'd you think about her? I was like, I mean, she cool. I could see her playing that role. But the problem is that role is a love interest role to you. And I don't know how I feel about casting somebody that you're sleeping with. Just because I don't want that energy in my workspace, And keep in mind, at this point, I had a lot of experience with that, with working with our MBK cast, because there were several like entanglements and relationships, and this person likes this person, and not to mention all the whispering about people's sexualities and who's gay and who's all of that going on. And so I was always trying to keep the workspace clear of those issues, even though it was like damn near impossible to do that, right? Like those issues were always popping up in our, in our work life, in my work life. Okay. So that was my concern. But he said to me, if you were to choose her, he said, I would make sure that wouldn't be a problem. Like I would make sure. And I remember asking him, are you sure? Like, if I decide I'm cool with working with her, like, are you sure it won't be, a problem? It won't turn into a problem. I won't have to deal with any of that. And he promised me, So, as it worked out, I casted her, right? So then, as it turns out, this girl was basically living with him in his house. which was super strange to me, that revelation, because I was like, I had been coming to his house, all this time, spending hours at his house at a time, and whenever this relationship with her started, like, I was still coming to his house, but I was never running into her. I didn't know of her existence, but apparently she had already been living with him since the top of that year. So I just started to like piece things together, and I was like, he has strategically been, not sharing that he was dating somebody. And last I recall, he told me he was celibate, but it turns out he's not celibate. He's active and he's got a girlfriend and she's living with him. And he has been strategically having me over at his house at times where I would miss her and vice versa. And that struck me as strange. I started to feel like, what is the reason why somebody would do that? If you are, a bachelor and you're living your bachelor lifestyle, who cares if your friends or the people in your life know you're dealing with somebody? Who cares if, you have a girlfriend? Who cares if, who cares about that? But the fact that you are, how do you have somebody living in your house with you, and you have your business partner over at your house very often, weekly, and that never comes up, that you have this whole other active part of your life in this space. I just thought that was strange, especially because he was the kind of person to always ask me about my life and wanting to know about my life and want to know about what I was up to, and what's going on with the people around us, the actors, and what's going on in my background and all that. He always wanted to know that, and that was another thing that I noticed about him, was he asked a lot about me. And at the time, because I'm just like an honest person, I'm not having an issue with sharing, because I'm thinking I'm sharing with somebody that I trust, that I consider a friend, and I'm also thinking he's going to do the same thing. Should I, be curious about something with him? But what I started to see in him is that, once again, there was a discrepancy between how he was handling me versus how he wanted to be handled, and he wasn't giving the same thing that he was asking from other people like me. So the situation with this girl at the door, and then her being the actress at the rehearsals, and then that whole thing, I was just like, yeah, he's got a deep well, and I think I'm starting to get to the depth of what's really here with this guy. We had a falling out in 2007 that brings more context to the 2008 stuff.